Hey guys, what is up? It's Amy and welcome back to my channel. I do video essays on the intersection between climate change and social justice, and today's video is going to be part 2 on my video on sustainable housing. So like I said in the last video, I just split it up because it was getting super long. So in this section, I talked about sustainable development technology, the role of government, and then I touched on certifications just for a couple of minutes. So keep on watching to kind of hear on that side of it. And also don't forget to please like, comment. I usually don't ask for engagement, but these kinds of videos don't get pushed out by YouTube as much because I think they're super interesting, but they're not as I can't clickbait this video, but definitely don't forget to engage with it so that it can be pushed out to more people. But that being said, I really hope you guys enjoy and just keep on watching. Now let's talk about sustainable design. So like I said, the class that I took was basically about sustainable housing but also technology, so we talked a lot about different technologies when it comes to sustainable housing development, and here are a couple of the ones that I remember specifically that I thought were super interesting. So passive heating and cooling, I kind of geeking out over this, but I think it's so interesting because it's kind of a way for us to take advantage of nature. Obviously we do that with like other things like burning fossil fuels is taking advantage of nature, but I feel like this is harnessing the power of the sun in a very interesting way where it literally doesn't really use more electricity, it's just science. So I'm going to put up a diagram on kind of what passive housing looks like. It's basically taking advantage of sunlight using window placement and angles, and it has a lot to do with like the sunrise and sunset. It's super interesting, and I don't know the science behind it, but I love it. It's super cool. This is kind of a tangent, but it's kind of what I do on this channel. So something that really gives me hope is that when I was minoring in sustainability, I was literally the only one in my classes that was a poli-sci major, and most people weren't even different social sciences. A lot of the people that I met in my minor were either architecture students or business students. What this means is that we have people making buildings and creating businesses that actually care about the environment. So it's really hopeful to see that a lot of the students who are learning about sustainability, who are making businesses and build or will be. I literally just... Thank you. I just thought that was really cool. But anyways, back to your regularly scheduled content. So the second one is biomimicry. So you've probably learned about this in science, but biomimicry is basically just copying Mother Nature and taking things from the environment that are efficient or just cool looking and using them in design. You obviously see this in like fashion and in housing design, but you can also see it in engineering when it comes to, I think there's like a bullet train in Japan that was biomimicked off of like a fish, and like the aerodynamics to basically copy the fish to be more energy anyways, to be more faster. So biomimicry can be used in a lot of different things, but it can also be used in sustainable housing development, and I'll link down a super cool article that goes through a bunch of different buildings that have used biomimicry. But one that I thought was super cool was this stadium in China, which was kind of shaped like a nest, and the design and like the shape of it and the way that it was engineered was basically meant to insulate the building but also to let in natural light. So I thought that was super interesting, and definitely click that article so you can see a couple more examples of biomimicry when it comes to sustainable housing design. But I just thought that was super cool. Next is insulation, which once again is kind of a holy grail when it comes to sustainable housing development because it's not really something you think about because it's out of sight, out of mind. But a well-insulated house is one that doesn't need to be heated up or cooled as much because it basically retains heat or retains coolness. So I think that's super awesome, and obviously this is why my parents would always yell at us for like leaving the doors open in the summer when it was super hot, and obviously the house had to stay cool. So that's basically what insulation does. Like if you just have a house that isn't well insulated, then you're just allowing heat or coldness you're allowing whatever temperature is inside to mix whatever temperature is outside, and especially in the summer, winter months, you don't want that. So it's really important to have a well-insulated house. This kind of goes hand in hand with HVAC, which is a super fancy term that I remember learning. I think it stands for heating, wait, I have it written down. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So this kind of HVAC system works really well when you have it works great when you have a well-insulated home, because then you don't have to work as hard. But the ventilation part is very, very important, because if you don't have a house that is well ventilated, that's not good in terms of the health of the building inside. If I remember correctly, I didn't look this up, this is from my mind, but it can lead to like mold and stuff, and obviously if the air inside isn't well ventilated, then you'll have like smells and I think mold. I don't know. But fun fact, French apartments, absolutely the worst when it comes to insulation and also just ventilation. Like, there's no vents in this apartment anywhere. Like, how? I don't get it. So I have to like open the windows every day to like let fresh air in. Ventilation is super important when it comes to energy efficiency, and I think that's why a lot of French apartments or older French homes are just not the most energy efficient. And I think it does have to do with obviously when a certain building was created. Obviously when this one was made, I don't even know if electricity was a thing. So yeah, just insulation is super important. Okay, so I just wanted to quickly touch on water, because once again, this is super interesting. How many times am I going to say that? I can't get super in depth, but water is super important when it comes to sustainability, because it is a finite resource, and something that is super cool with water and the technology we're creating is how we can reuse gray water. So if you don't know what gray water is, it's basically water that's used but not like dirt, like it's dirty but not dirty. So obviously toilet water, disgusting, you can't reuse that. But if you wash your hands in the sink, that water is not gross, like it's not good, but like you can reuse that water. Or like if you take a shower, that water is also just you wouldn't drink it, but you know, you can use it for other things. So there's certain systems that will reuse shower water into toilet water to like flush the toilet. So I think these are super cool, because when we use water once and then just like never again, it's just kind of wasteful. And especially like toilet water, like I think I can't remember the specific number, but I remember hearing like how much water goes into one flush, and I'm just like, why? That's just so much, and for what? So I think it's super cool that we have systems that are able to recycle gray water into water that's more useful for flushing toilets, because toilet water does not need to be clean. It doesn't need to be. Oh, and then also another quick thing is groundwater heaters. They're based, so one of the most energy intensive, I wouldn't say one of the most, there I am again just creating statistics that I don't know about. But a very energy intensive part of kind of a home is heating water. That's why like a tip for sustainability is to shower with kind of not super hot water, and also when you're doing the dishes to not use super hot water. I personally am the worst at this, because heating water just takes up a lot of energy, but there's some technology that is able to use the ground to heat up water. I can put up a diagram once again to show you what it looks like. Once again, like I don't know the science, I'm not an engineer, but I think it's super cool. Like you basically just use it, like take some water, and it's just a way for us to use less energy, which is honestly always the goal. Even if we live in a world that is 100% renewable energy, whatever energy doesn't have to be used is good energy. So I think it's super cool that we have systems like that are able to heat up our water without using as much energy. So we love that. So then finally, materials. Once again, I'm just gonna quickly go over this because I didn't realize how long I ended up talking for this video. But any kind of material that's already been used is always going to be the most sustainable materials. But I wanted to touch on the idea of reusing old buildings. I had never honestly considered this, but why are we making brand new buildings when we could just use buildings that already exist? So obviously you have like the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. We need to start reusing buildings. So you see a lot of like demolition, and honestly the videos are kind of cool, but I always wonder, like, did that building need to be demolished, or could you just like strip it? Could you just kind of retrofit it to be more sustainable? Or can you just update it to be more safe if it's like unsafe or something? I just think that's kind of super interesting. But yeah, it's really important for us to reduce how many new buildings we're creating, and to instead use the ones we already have and make the insulation better, install new windows, and do other things inside that is going to make the building more sustainable instead of just building a brand new building. So that's a great way to like reduce materials, obviously, and also to just reuse. So, you know, reduce, reuse, recycle. We love that. On the topic of using old buildings, I wanted to touch on gentrification, because whenever you're kind of getting into the territory of like updating certain areas, especially poor neighborhoods, it's really important to also consult the people who actually live there. So I feel like this video is just turning into a story time about the classes I took at university, but I took a class on sustainable communities, and our project for the semester was to talk about resiliency, and we were focused on a specific area in Minneapolis, and I think it was like 5th Street or something. We kind of learned about the area a little bit, and we also learned about the gentrification that was happening in this area. So one example is that some company, or I don't know who specifically, came into the neighborhood and built like a super fancy grocery store. I think it was like a co-op, and a lot of people in the neighborhood just were not feeling it, and they're like, why are you putting this here? We don't want this in our neighborhood. And this wasn't something that they had been asking for. So it's just super important when we are talking about upgrading, or I guess like when we're talking about developing these poor communities, it's important to kind of keep in mind what the people need, and also to include the people in the projects when the projects are done, to hire the people in that local community to work in these stores and these businesses, so that you can, why was I going to say facilitate? That's not the word. So that you can stimulate the economy and also help put money back into the people who are actually living in this area. So that's just super important when it comes to development. And once again, back to kind of touching on the social side of sustainability, making sure that you're taking care of the people who you are using the community of. And then finally, when it comes to materials, it's also important to consider not just sustainability, so you know, using good materials and everything, but also durability, because something that is going to last a long time is usually going to be more sustainable than something that is going to not last as long. So this is kind of not like dichotomy, this is kind of a dilemma when it comes to sustainability and kind of the glass versus plastic debate, because glass is more sustainable because it's not going to last a billion years, and it's also it's easier to recycle and everything, but also it uses a lot of energy and it breaks easier. So sometimes plastic is the better option. So it's kind of, you need to kind of think about it in a holistic way, but it's just important to think about durability, because you want to build buildings that are going to last and use materials that are going to do this. That being said, I think it is cool that we're seeing a lot of innovation when it comes to building materials. I'm going to link down a video that I watched from the YouTube channel Art Changing Climate, and it was a video about cement and the different innovation that we're seeing when it comes to creating better cement, because cement, I don't remember the specific statistic, but it uses a lot of energy, but it's also a really common building material, so we can't just not use it. So I think it's really cool. Definitely go check out that video, but it's really great to use materials that are going to last a long time. Okay, so next, let's talk a little bit about rooftop solar, which is super exciting because it's a way for people to be able to use renewable energy just kind of at an individual level. And I'm planning a video on rooftop solar or individual renewable energy in the future, so definitely stay tuned for that. But I think rooftop solar is super cool. The only struggle is that it's very expensive to invest in, even if it does save you money in the future, which a lot of things in sustainability land will save money in the future, but they're just super expensive to invest in. But I do think it's a really great innovation that we are seeing. But the other thing is that we also need to upgrade our grid to be able to help people who are transitioning to rooftop solar to be able to reap all of the benefits of it. A lot of states don't protect people who have renewable energy to be able to benefit from extra energy that they create. I don't remember the name of the laws, I'm going to put them up on the screen, but a lot of states don't have these laws so that the grid operator isn't required to sell back the extra energy that an individual is producing. So if I produce twice as much energy as I actually consume, I'm actually just giving away half of the energy production, which is, you know, free money. We need to put these laws in place so that people who have rooftop solar can be able to benefit greatly from that exchange. This is just something that I, once again, just find super interesting, and it is chlorofluorocarbons. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm just gonna say CFCs for the rest of this segment. But if you don't know what CFCs are, they're basically just little monsters that go up and eat the ozone. So CFCs are a specific molecule. I think there's other ones like chlorofluorocarbons, so that would be like HCFC. I don't know, I'm not a scientist, but the issue with them is that they break down the ozone layer, so you know, we shouldn't be putting that into the air because that's really not good. So when people realized that there's a hole in the ozone, everyone kind of started freaking out and they're like, oh my god, we should probably do something about this. So they did. They came together and decided to do something about it. So after doing a little bit of research, they realized that the issue was the before mentioned chlorofluorocarbon, CFCs. And what they decided to do when they realized that CFCs were the issue, they decided to ban them. So if you didn't know, CFCs used to be used in refrigerants and I believe hairspray as well, but we just found new ways to refrigerate things and to keep our hair slicked back. And so the ban on chlorofluorocarbons basically just saved us from ourselves, and we were able to escape. I'm pretty sure there's still a hole in the ozone, but it's either retreating or it's not as bad, or like it hasn't expanded. We basically kind of saved ourselves for a little bit. The reason I wanted to talk a little bit about this was it shows how when we come together and we have governments that actually do something about the kind of crisis that we're in, we can actually make real change and we can actually make good policy decisions. The only issue is that we need people in office who actually care and who are actually going to step up and do the right thing. So let's talk about the role of government when it comes to sustainable housing development. Let's try not to make this 3 hours long though. So first, public transportation. So I've already kind of talked a little bit about cars, but the other important thing is kind of a replacement, because you know, we still need to get places. So cities do need to invest in a good public transportation system, and I'm looking at the US on this one because most of Europe has it figured out. The US is still learning though. So we need to make cities where people can get to where they need to be with buses and trains and metros instead of having to rely on cars or walking, because like I mentioned, the closest grocery store for me in my hometown is 20 minutes away, and the Walmart that I usually shop at, the closest Walmart is 2.5 hours away by walking. It's only like a 10-minute or 15-minute drive. So we need buses and trains that are able to get us to where we need to be. Can we also stop increasing the price of tickets? We shouldn't be taxing people for doing the right thing. Increase the gas tax for sure, but please leave the buses alone. And the other thing is investing in electric buses, because even though buses are more sustainable, they're still buses and they're still putting exhaust into the air. So it's also important that we kind of start transitioning to electric buses. This is something that is actually happening in Minneapolis. I feel like I talk about Minneapolis so much, you would think I'm Minnesotan, but I'm not. But yeah, I think it's super cool that they are doing that, because electric buses are the future, electric vehicles in general. So we need to be investing in these technologies and making sure that people can use electric buses in the future as we kind of start to purchase new buses for cities. Also, kind of on a note of electric vehicles, putting more electric charging stations, because as people kind of start to buy into electric vehicles, they need a place to charge it when they're out and about. So we need to be putting more areas for people to be able to charge their electric vehicles. So cities, get started on that. So next is rebates and incentives. So oftentimes, obviously the so the government has a couple tools at their expense to be able to get people to do what they want to do. So obviously you have taxes, which make people not want to do something, i.e. a tax on luxury goods, a tax on smoking, which I don't know how much, does that actually work? I don't know. But usually if you don't want someone to do something, you tax it. A gas tax, for example. When you want someone to do something, then you usually do incentives or rebates. So this is basically the government just giving you money for doing something good, and the government should be giving out rebates for people who put solar panels on their house, for people who buy electric vehicles, basically for people who are investing in sustainable technologies, because we need to incentivize these kinds of actions, and it's also super expensive. So if people are putting their money on the line for this, then they should be incentivized to do so. And especially when it comes to lower income people, rebates are a way to make, for example, rooftop solar more feasible for someone of a lower income area. And also when it comes to people of lower incomes investing in solar energy, there's also, I'm going to try to see if I can find an article or some kind of guide, but you're able to basically I don't remember specifically how it works, but you can make sure that the energy you're using in your home actually comes from renewable or sustainable sources. So I'm going to link down something below that can tell you how to do that. I don't live in a home, so I haven't looked much into it, but I'm pretty sure Shelbizzle was talking about it in a video, so I'm gonna try to see if I can find something. And also when I was interning for this one organization that has to do a lot with like renewable and sustainable energy, I was basically the government intern, so I had to read up on a lot of bills and stuff. And in Minneapolis specifically, or technically Minnesota, because St. Paul's the capital, but in Minnesota there was a lot of bills. Whoa, I sounded very Midwestern when I said that. There was one bill in particular that I remember reading that was basically a solar farm specifically for a low-income community, and it was basically just a way for people in lower income to be able to invest in solar energy. So I thought that was pretty cool, but we just need more of that. Government, please give me more of that. My camera died, because of course it did, so we're gonna try to see if we can finish filming the rest of this video without it dying again. So, city design. Like I mentioned earlier, we need to design cities where it's easy to get to where you need to be so that we don't have to rely on cars. And another important component is green spaces. So green spaces are basically, as they sound, a lot of these words are basically just what they mean. So green spaces are areas within cities that are basically nature. So you can have parks, little sidewalk areas that have trees, even flowers and plants on people's balconies. That's something you see a lot here in Paris. These are all green spaces, and it's a way to kind of bring nature back into the city. Oftentimes as humans, we kind of separate ourselves from nature, even though it's kind of natural, or I guess it's kind of, I don't really like using natural in a normative sense, but I do feel as humans we really do enjoy nature. Whenever we go on vacation, we go to the mountains, we go hiking, skiing, we go to the beach. We just enjoy being in nature, but oftentimes we kind of separate ourselves from nature, even though we technically never really leave nature. We just kind of hide it within cities. So it's really important to bring back the greenery and to bring back the nature within cities, and that's how you can get kind of green spaces, and you can go crazy with it. There's like structures where there's like leaves on top of buildings. You can have green roofs, which are kind of complicated, and I would love to do a whole video on kind of green spaces and how it can be implemented within cities, because it's super interesting. But when it comes to sustainable design, obviously this is something that you can't really do anything as an individual. Like, you can't really design your city at all. So this is where governments have to come in and implement ways to change the way cities are currently laid out, and to kind of mix up where things are placed to kind of make it easier for people to live close to the areas where they need to be. Whenever we're designing cities, it's important to kind of think about like who is going to need this building and how can we make it so as many people as possible can access it. Like I said, when it comes to designing cities, we need governments that are actually thinking about these things, not just kind of thinking, oh well, people are gonna drive, so we don't really need to like think about where things are. It is important to always consider making sure that everything is walkable or at least busable. So then finally I wanted to talk about two certifications that have to do with sustainable buildings. I would love to do a full deep dive on this in another video, but just to kind of finish off this video, the two that I'm going to be talking about is LEED certification and Energy Star. So LEED certification stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. So this basically just takes a look at a building and sees how energy efficient it is. And they, not just energy efficiency actually, they look at kind of a holistic approach to a building and see whether or not this building is sustainable. And they look at a bunch of different things like energy efficiency, water usage, and also the materials and how it was created. And I think they also have a specific point for like innovation or something, which I think is kind of interesting. But also LEED certification is very reputable and it's a way to see whether or not building is or is not sustainable. And if you, for some reason, you're watching this video and you're in architecture and you're building homes, I think getting LEED certification is great, not only to kind of brag, but also to be able to show that you are making sustainable homes. The thing about certifications is that they, I guess, as the name suggests, they certify that something is true. So LEED certification kind of proves that this building is or is not sustainable. We actually had a building on our campus that was LEED certified and it was really interesting. So it was a really pretty building. But yeah, LEED certification is pretty cool and a great way to know whether or not a building is sustainable. The second certification I wanted to talk a little bit about was Energy Star. The Energy Star certification. You've probably seen these. You've seen this logo probably on a lot of different appliances, and this basically shows that an appliance is energy efficient or as energy efficient as it can be. So whenever you're buying new appliances, obviously never replace something that isn't broken, but if you're getting new appliances, try to make sure that you can find appliances that are Energy Star verified, because this shows that it is an appliance that is more sustainable because it's going to consume less energy for obviously the same amount of output, which is always great because, you know, you don't want to be consuming too much energy. So in conclusion, I personally think sustainable housing or sustainable development is super interesting, and I hope you guys enjoyed kind of my take on it. I think for the future, it is important for us to have a more holistic approach to how we think about sustainable development. It is an integral part of a sustainable future because we kind of have to continue to live somewhere, and obviously as a population continues to expand, we need to think about how we can make sustainable housing for the new people, because that's super important. And I also think this is a great conversation to have with developing countries, because as they're kind of developing their infrastructure and as they're creating cities and everything, we need to make sure that we're helping developing countries to be able to implement these kinds of strategies into their development designs so that they can kind of skip all of the missteps that countries like the US have taken when it comes to how we design cities, suburban life, and all that kind of stuff, so that they can just kind of skip to the more sustainable development part of everything. So if you enjoyed this video at all, of course don't forget to like, and you can also comment down below your thoughts and also what other videos you want to see from me in the future. You can also support me on Patreon. Thank you so much to my patrons for allowing me to be able to make so many great videos. I really appreciate you guys, because doing YouTube videos takes so much time out of my day, and thank you so much for kind of believing me. Thank you for believing in me and helping me to be able to succeed on YouTube. I really appreciate it. I'm also going to have all my other social media linked down below, so you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, where I usually on Instagram I just kind of vibe all these pictures in my background. I just recently designed my room today. You'll probably notice my background is different today, but yeah, I just put these up. But a lot of these pictures you'll see on my Instagram, so definitely go follow me if you want more pictures and kind of just my life kinds of related things. And my Twitter is where I tweet a lot of things mostly a lot of anger for how our government is progressing, i.e. not progressing at all. So you can follow me on the other social media if you want to get more from me in that sense. You can also obviously subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for 4,000. I'm pretty sure this is the first video that I'm filming since hitting 4K. It feels great. Ooh, 4K. It seems fancy. So thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed for me. Here's to another 1,000. So thank you so much for everyone who has subscribed to me. It's always so much fun hitting milestones, even though this isn't like 100K or anything. It's still a milestone, and I think it's super cool. And if you have subscribed, if you've commented, liked, anything like that, thank you so much. And you helped me get to where I am today, so we love that. That being said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and also stay tuned for my video on environmental racism. I have been promising this video literally for almost a year, not almost a year, it's like been 9 months, but I just really want it to be really great, so I've been putting a lot of research, and I've literally taken it off of my content schedule because I want to get everything ready for it before I actually put it out. So I've been doing a lot of research for that video. So in the meantime, you get fun videos like this. This video was supposed to be short. I thought this would be like a 10-minute video. I've been talking for almost 2 hours. Are we surprised? No. But that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.